Good morning. Do you want to see my horse? Who wants to see my horse? Do you want to see my horse? Yeah. Okay. I'll show you my horse. I'll show you if you're that interested, I will show you. There you go. Happy? There's the horse. Dominic. Now, what's that got to do with the whole Peru thing? Surprisingly, a lot. That question changed South America. Today, we're going to revisit the Spanish conquest of South America, and we're going to answer the question, how did they do it? But before we get into the detail of that, let's take a detour to ancient Greece, because there are some remarkable similarities here. So we're back in the ancient times, and the Greeks have been camped outside the city of Troy for 10 years, trying to break in. Why? Because Paris, a Trojan prince, ran off with Helen, the wife of the Spartan king. And let's just say that the Greeks took it pretty personally. After a decade of battle, the Greeks, they're tired, they're frustrated, and frankly, they're running out of ideas. And then Odysseus, who's always the cleverest guy in the room, comes up with a plan. Instead of another pointless attack, let's play mind games. So they build this massive wooden horse. It's hollow on the inside, and they leave it outside the gates of Troy. Then they pretend to give up and sail away, making it look like they've finally thrown in the towel. The Trojans, thinking they've won the war, drag the horse into their city as a victory trophy. Some of them are a bit skeptical. One guy, Lao Kun, even warns, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. But nobody listens, because who doesn't love a free giant horse? Well, that night, while the Trojans are busy partying like they've just won the Super Bowl, a group of Greek soldiers hidden inside the horse sneaks out, opens the city gates, and lets the rest of the Greek army, who've only pretended to leave, storm in. Troy is caught completely off guard, and by morning, the city is burning to the ground. So after 10 years of fighting, Troy doesn't fall because they were, the victim of some sort of brute strength. They fell because they got played. And I think someone read an anthology of Greek myths on the Spanish ship over to South America. Let's recover some of the basics of the Spanish colonization of South America. Spain, having finally defeated the Moors at Granada, were in desperate need of gold, and they thought they could find it in the Indies, the continent we now know of as South America, but they thought was a part of Asia at the time. Not only were the Spanish hungry for gold, but they were a Catholic monarchy, and they saw it as their duty to spread the teachings of the Catholic Church and convert uncivilized populations to Catholicism as they went. The House of Castile, that's Queen Isabella of Spain, was so pious that the Pope actually afforded her royal court special dispensation to choose their own bishops without requiring papal approval. And Queen Isabella saw a savvy opportunity to combine these two areas of interest into one fell swoop. Spain would go around the world introducing native civilizations to Catholicism, while at the same time accepting payment for this theological service by will of plundering that country's natural resources. If any country refused to accept Catholicism, only then would Spain use military force. And this sort of war was euphemistically called a just war. So Spain was willing to engage in a just war. That would feel morally okay. The gold, that was just a side payment. On paper, this was just about helping the uncivilized accept Jesus into their hearts. Today, I'm going to tell you the exact happenings of the Spanish conquest of Peru, led by Francisco Pizarro, a guy who went from being an illiterate pig farmer in Spain to toppling one of the greatest empires in history. All right, so it's November 1532, and Francisco Pizarro is marching towards Cajamarca, deep in the Andes, with about 168 Spanish soldiers. He's insanely outnumbered by tens of thousands of Inca warriors nearby. So he's going to have to be extremely smart about how he plays his cards here. Pizarro knows that by this point, the Inca Empire is already a bit of a mess. Their emperor, Atahualpa, has just won a brutal civil war against his brother, and he is right now feeling invincible. But Pizarro sees the cracks in the armor, so he contacts Atahualpa under the guise of paying respects. In particular, Pizarro wrote that he wanted to demonstrate horsemanship to the emperor, because the Incas were unfamiliar with horses. Now, the Incas didn't take the Spanish threat seriously. There weren't enough of them to take seriously. But they also seemed blissfully unaware of ancient Greek history. So on November the 16th, 1532, the newly crowned Incan Emperor Atahualpa succumbs to one of the most shocking ambushes in history. He falls for the horse. He's never seen a horse before, and he's intrigued. Atahualpa arrives at Cajamarca on the afternoon, seated on a luxurious golden litter, carried by attendants, surrounded by thousands of his warriors. But here's the catch. None of them are armed. The Incas don't see the Spaniards as a serious threat, so they come peacefully. They left their weapons behind at camp. And it's a spectacular miscalculation. Waiting in the shadows are 168 Spanish soldiers hidden inside buildings surrounding the square. Pizarro has musketeers, cavalry, cannons, small in number, but terrifying in impact. The plan is simple: shock, confusion, and overwhelming violence. At the center of the square, Atahualpa is greeted by the Dominican friar Vicente del Valverde, who presents him with a Bible and reads to him El Requerimiento, the requirement. This moment is key. Ex parte regis Don Fernandi ac Done Lone, filiae eos, reginae Castellae et Leonis, Barbararum gentium subigatorum, nos erum famuli tui notum facimus et notum facimus, sicut possumus, quod Dominus Deus noster, vivus et aeternus, creavit celum et terram, et unum hominum et unum mulierum, ex quibus tu et nos, omnes hominus mundi et omnes isti, qui sumus et nos, omnes hominus mundi, et omnes qui fuerunt et nos sumus, omnes hominis mundi. Qui ferunt et nos, et omnes hominis post nos, et omnes homines, qui fuerunt et nos, omnes hominis post nos, et unum hominum at unum mulierum creavit celum et terram, creavit Dominus Deus noster vivus et aeternus, sed propter multitudinem, quae ab hoc viro et mulier orta est, quinque milia annorum ab orbe condito, necesse fuit et alcios alio modo at aliquo alio abiret, et in multa regna et provincias divideruntur, quia in uno solo sustinieri non poterant. So obviously it's quite clear what the friar is saying. If anybody wants to, do you want to maybe summarize? Well, that was just the first paragraph of the requirement, an 8-paragraph declaration of the Catholic faith read in Latin to a man who had never seen a bound book before. Atahualpa doesn't understand it, of course, But what the friar is saying is that he must accept Christianity and submit to the Spanish king. Atahualpa examined the Bible with some curiosity, and then he tossed it to the ground. And that's it. That's the excuse Pizarro needs. And the ambush begins. Cannons fire, muskets explode, the gates slam shut, and the Incas, caught completely off guard, are trapped in this square as the Spanish cavalry thunder in from hiding, hacking through the crowds with their swords. The Incas, trained for massive open field battles, don't know how to fight in this chaos. And without weapons, they can't even properly defend themselves. So panic spreads. The Spanish have another advantage, and that's horses. The Incas have never fought cavalry before, and they believe that the riders and their horses are some kind of supernatural creatures, that the massive war horses just trample warriors, adding to the terror. Atahualpa, watching from his golden litter, is in shock. His men try to carry him to safety, but the Spanish fight their way to him, cutting down everyone in their path. And eventually Pizarro himself grabs the emperor and pulls him from his throne. The Inca army, now leaderless and in disarray, flees in panic. Thousands are killed in the stampede. By sunset, the battle is over, if you can even call it a battle. The Spanish have suffered 0 casualties. The Incas, on the other hand, thousands dead. The emperor of the most powerful empire in South America is now a prisoner. Atahualpa, incredulous and humiliated, can't believe what's just happened. But he quickly realizes that Pizarro isn't going to kill him immediately. So thinking like a ruler, he does 2 things. He wants to save his own life, but he also wants to retain his powerful position as emperor. So he offers a deal and a death sentence. He tells Pizarro that if he's spared, he will fill an entire room with gold and silver as a ransom. And he orders his men to execute his brother. His brother Huaca was who he'd just defeated in the Incan Civil War, and he wanted to avoid any contention to his throne. Pizarro agrees to the ransom. After all, he didn't just come here to conquer. He came for riches. He came for gold. Let's open the portal. We'll take a look at a couple of Peruvian ports of call. Then I'm going to tell you what happened next. So, Salaverry is our first port in Peru. Here's a picture of the gangway area. Not much on the pier side, and there is a shuttle bus that we are required to take here. So let me show you on a map where that shuttle bus is going to take us to. Very, very close by. It's roughly a 10-minute drive, and it drops us off at the Plaza de Armas de Salaverry. Plaza de Armas de Salaverry. From there, if you wanted to go to Trujillo, then you're looking at a 15-kilometer or 30-minute drive to get further along. Some of you have done a short excursion, which is essentially a shuttle bus that will take you all the way just directly to Trujillo. And there may well be space on that. I'm not sure if you would prefer to do it that way. Okay, let's get through our top 10. Playa Salaverry is sort of the only thing in Salaverry itself when it comes to tourism. The square where shuttle bus drops us off is nice. Then there's the beach. Beyond that, it is a good idea to head further afield to Trujillo. But if you do want a beach stay in Salaverry, then this playa is a sort of grey sand beach with a desert-esque backdrop, a few sun umbrellas, a little paved malecon as well, set quite far back from the water because the beach is pretty wide. It would be inaccurate to call it one of the world's most charming beaches. But if you've ever fancied the idea of sunbathing amidst petroleum storage tanks, then this is the beach you've been waiting for. Just outside Trujillo, beneath the looming Cerro Blanco, is one of Peru's most astonishing archaeological sites, Huaca de la Luna. This is where I'm heading tomorrow. Built by the Moche civilization over 1,000 years ago, it's a vast adobe pyramid, more than just a temple. It was a place of rituals, sacrifices, and political power. Unlike many ancient ruins worn down by time, the Huaca de la Luna still bursts with color. Its walls are covered with vivid murals of Apec, who was the Moche's fearsome god, glaring down with feline fangs. There's a big red sculpture of him with a big addition to the sculpture. You will understand when you see it. Huge sculpture. The intricate designs in the murals, they've been preserved for centuries beneath layers of desert sand. They're offering this rare, almost surreal glimpse into Moche art and beliefs. And before exploring the temple itself, there's an on-site museum. That is a must. It pieces together the story of the Moche, showcasing gold jewelry, ceremonial pottery, eerie remains of sacrificial victims, and you'll come face to face with the craftsmanship and power of this once mighty culture whose society revolved around warfare, agriculture, and these elaborate ceremonies. Then standing atop the temple, gazing across the ruins of its sister site, Huaca del Sol, you can almost hear the echoes of the ancient priests and warriors. It's a moment of history, and it just seems to whisper through the winds of the desert. Trujillo's Plaza de Armas is the city's grand stage. So we've moved up to Trujillo now, 30-minute drive up. It's a sun-drenched expanse framed by these elegant colonial mansions and a cathedral painted the color of golden hour. It's a place where history lingers in the air because this is the place where Simón Bolívar declared Peru's independence in 1820. This square. This plaza is anchored by the Freedom Monument, a dramatic marble sculpture symbolizing Peru's break from Spanish rule. And around it, the locals chat on benches, vendors peddle sweets, and the occasional musician will fill the air with traditional melodies. Towering over it all is that cathedral, Trujillo Cathedral, a striking yellow structure with white accents, built in the 17th century. Now, outside its facade is pretty modest, but if you step inside, you'll find a riot of color. Ornate altarpieces, religious paintings from the Cusco school, sense of quiet grandeur. And adjacent, there's a museum. The Cathedral Museum holds an impressive collection of religious artifacts, some dating back to the Spanish conquest itself. By day, the plaza is a really lively hub. If you were here at night, it becomes almost cinematic when the darkness starts to fall and it lights up this warm yellow. But whether you're coming here for the history, to sip coffee under an arcade, or just to watch Trujillo life unfold, this is the city's beating heartbeat. And right by it is Casa Uquiaga, a neoclassical beauty facing the Plaza de Armas. It's a time capsule of Peru's colonial and republican past. It's got this deep blue facade. They've got grand wooden balconies, and it exudes this old world elegance. Inside, polished floors and chandeliers lead to rooms once visited by Simón Bolívar, who briefly governed from here. The house is now a Banco Central de Reserva museum, and it holds priceless artifacts from colonial furniture, including Bolívar's desk, to pre-Columbian ceramics. Its courtyards offer a moment of tranquility amid the city's bustle. But more than just a historic home, it's a glimpse into Trujillo's aristocratic past, refined, opulent, steeped in history. Be sure to have your passport with you if you want to go here, because you have to show it to go through security and register. You don't have your passports. Don't go here then. You might want to ask them if it's possible to get them back. I don't know if it is. Oh, they gave you copies. Then bring your copy. Hopefully that'll be enough. The Museo de Arqueologia, UNT. Don't know what the UNT part stands for, but maybe you can find out for me tomorrow. It's housed in another colonial mansion just off of Trujillo's Plaza de Armas. It's another gateway into northern Peru's ancient past. Its rooms unfold like chapters of history. They showcase mochi, chimu, viru artifacts, intricately painted ceramics, ceremonial knives, and also quite eerie funeral masks. But the highlight is a detailed timeline of Trujillo's pre-Columbian cultures, bringing their ancestry and their rituals to life. The mansion itself, with its thick adobe walls, high ceilings, add to the sense of stepping back in time. It's not big, but it is packed with history. So it's a perfect primer before you head out to Chan Chan or Huaca del Sol y la Luna. Let's go to Chan Chan now. Sprawling across the arid coastline just outside of Trujillo, Chan Chan is a city of sand and secrets. It is the largest adobe city in the world, and it is the former capital of the Chimu civilization. This was once home to 60,000 people. This labyrinthine metropolis thrived between the 9th and 15th centuries, which was long before the Incas arrived here, and its intricately carved walls, covered in motifs of fish, birds, waves, whisper of a people deeply connected to the sea. The highlight is the Chudi Palace, which is a maze of ceremonial courtyards, vast storage rooms, grand funerary complex where the Chimu rulers were laid to rest. And walking through its sun-baked corridors, it's so easy to imagine the processions of priests hushed in prayer as they make their way through. It's amazingly well kept for something as old as it is. There are the audience halls, which were used for royal meetings, and they've still got the relief of pelicans and fishing nets into the walls, reflecting the society that depended on the ocean for its survival. The sheer scale, the artistry, the mystery of its abandoned streets make this one of the most breathtaking pre-Columbian sites in the entirety of Peru. It is a glimpse into a civilization lost to time. Tucked away from Trujillo's colonial grandeur, the Jardin Botanico is a quiet retreat where nature takes center stage. It's a lush sanctuary of native and exotic plants, and it offers a refreshing contrast to the city's sun-baked streets. If you wander along these shaded paths lined with towering ceiba trees, orchids, medicinal herbs that were used by pre-Columbian cultures, bird song suddenly replacing the sound of car horns, the scent of blooming flowers in the air. It's beautiful, and it's really popular with the locals too, just seeking a place for peaceful escape, a place to slow down, to breathe deeply, just to appreciate the softer, greener side of Trujillo. And a small donation is optional at the entrance. The Museo del Juguete is a nostalgic wonderland. This is where childhood memories come to life. Housed in another charming colonial building, it showcases centuries of playthings, from antique dolls and tin soldiers to wind-up toys and handcrafted wooden figures. It was created and curated by a Peruvian artist, Gerardo Chavez, and it was his collection which has then grown and grown, offering a glimpse into the way children across different cultures and eras have imagined the world. Some of the toys are whimsical, others are eerily lifelike, but all of them tell a story of creativity and innocence. A visit here is both playful and reflective. It's a reminder that even the simplest objects can hold a lifetime of dreams. Mercado Central is Trujillo's sensory overload in the best way possible. Stalls burst with tropical fruits, seafood, aromatic spices, all while vendors are shouting out their daily specials at you. from golden tamales to handmade textiles. This is a feast for both your palate and your curiosity. A place where Trujillo's flavors, colors, and lively spirit crash together. And the final one for you in Trujillo is Huron Francisco Pizarro, named after Francisco Pizarro, who we were talking about earlier. And this is Trujillo's beating commercial heart. This is a lively stretch where colonial charm meets modern bustle. It's lined with historic facades, local boutiques, bustling cafes. This is the ideal place to head to just soak up the city's daily rhythm. Here you'll find everything from artisan crafts, handmade jewelry, to high-end street fashion and Peruvian textiles. You'll also, along the street, find street vendors who sell churros and fresh fruit. Usually there's musicians that just add that sort of festive hum to the air. So whether you're browsing for souvenirs, whether you're sipping coffee, whether you're just people watching, this is the place to capture the essence of Trujillo. Historic, dynamic, and full of life. Let's put them all on a map. There you go. So worth pointing out that this map is not a map of Salaverry. This is a map of Trujillo, because the only things down in Salaverry area, that Playa Salaverry, the beach, and La Huaca de la Luna is on the way. So it's on the road between Salaverry and Trujillo. Everything else is really close by in that colonial center that's wrapped by the Spanish road, Avenida España. All right, let's move on to another Peruvian port of call. Now we're going to skip over Lima today. We're going to do a whole presentation just about Lima in our next day at sea. So today we're going to look ahead at General San Martin. And, well, you can see I could have reused the photograph of the other port, because it's another one of these ports that's really not got much there in terms of facilities. Again, there is a shuttle bus, and again, you must take the shuttle bus if you want to get off, because really this is an industrial port. So that's the journey that we're looking at. The shuttle bus a little bit longer here. We're where the ship is. The bus is where the shuttle bus will stop. That alone is roughly a half an hour drive. Then, if you wanted to go on to Pisco, you're looking at another half an hour drive. So just to give you an idea of scope and scale here, we are on a peninsula that juts out inconveniently. So we've got to get back in. This is where it's going to drop us off, the Pazuela del Chaco, which is going to be easier to see on the next coming maps, but it is just at the top here of this little bit that juts out, but you'll see it clearer on the next maps. Alrighty, let's get into our highlights. There is not a huge amount for tourists to do in Paracas itself. The shuttle bus drops us off at the north end of this town in a place called El Chaco, and from there you've got a couple of options if you do want to stay local. There's a nice park, it's got a lake, it's got a golf course. To get there, what you'd do is you would head back towards the direction that the shuttle bus took you, and then you take the road that follows the seafront. So just to zoom in here on that map in the corner, you can see where the shuttle bus drops you off at the top of this bump that comes out, and then the park is most of that bump that comes out. The other thing is the Malecon. Malecon El Chaco is the kind of place where you end up lingering much longer than you expected. It's a simple waterfront promenade. It's nothing flashy, but it's got that lazy, salt-aired charm that makes you want to just sit and watch the fishing boats come and go. And pelicans waddle around like they own the place, hoping for scraps of ceviche. Tourists size up which boat to take to the Ballestas Islands, which we'll talk about in a minute. And there's always, this is very comfortable here, there's always this gentle breeze. It just carries the smell of the ocean, mixing it in with grilled seafood. And then you've got someone trying to sell you a sun hat. It's laid back, a little chaotic, completely Paracas. So if you're staying local, I've just covered everything. There's one more thing actually pretty nearby, and that's the Monumento San Martin. It's about an 11-minute walk out of Paracas. And the Monumento San Martin feels like it should be more dramatic. After all, this is where General Jose de San Martin supposedly landed in 1820 to kickstart Peru's independence. But instead, it's a simple obelisk just standing against this desert backdrop, quietly marking the spot where history unfolded. There's not much by the way of fanfare here, but the setting makes up for it. Windswept coastline, rolling dunes behind it, and that endless Pacific horizon. It's a good place to stop, to take in the view, to imagine the moment when one of South America's greatest liberators first stepped foot on Peruvian soil, changing history forever. Take a picture, then leave. So number 4, the Islas Ballestas are what happens when nature goes a little wild. Massive rock arches, craggy cliffs, more birds than you've ever seen in the same place. It's another poor man's Galapagos. This reserve is home to seals, penguins, thousands of seabirds, all very noisily claiming their spot. And getting there is easy. Boats leave from Paracas every morning, zipping across the bay while stopping to admire at the candelabra geoglyph etched into the hillside. And then once on the island, the smell of guano, bird poo, hits you first. But the sheer spectacle of wildlife makes up for it. It's loud, it's smelly, it is utterly spectacular. Working our way north towards Pisco, you've got another option of a nice beach. This is Playa Santa Elena. Playa Santa Elena is the kind of beach that you stumble upon and you wonder why it isn't packed. It's got golden sand, calm waves, and not much else. It's just the sound of the ocean, an occasional seabird overhead. Just keep your mouth closed if you're sunbathing. It's peaceful, it's great for a walk, and it is refreshingly free of crowds. The Museo de Sitio Julio C. Tello is a perfect introduction to Paracas' ancient past. It is named after the archaeologist who uncovered the mystery of the Paracas culture. It's a small but fascinating museum. It houses beautifully preserved textiles, skulls with cranial deformations, intricate ceramics. The Paracas people were master weavers. They were also skilled surgeons. That's why the skulls are so interesting. And their elongated skulls hint at a social status or some sort of ritual practice. The museum sits on the edge of the Reserva Nacional de Paracas, which makes it a great first stop before exploring the desert and the coastline there. As I mentioned, it's compact, but it's well curated and packed with enough history to make your head spin. And then there's this, the Reserva Nacional de Paracas. This is where the desert collides with the sea and a surreal landscape of windswept dunes, red sand beaches, and dramatic cliffs just plunging into the Pacific meet. It's vast, it's wild, it's mostly silent except for the waves and the birds. And driving through feels like you're crossing another planet. It is a little otherworldly. Playa Roja, with its striking red sands, is a must-see, as is the Cathedral Rock, though nature has worn it down over time. But whether you're there for the views, the solitude, or the sheer space, Paracas never feels ordinary. It's beautifully untamed. And it is best enjoyed by either renting a car or taking an organized tour. Tambo, Colorado is one of Peru's best preserved Inca sites. But instead of the usual Andean setting, it sits in the arid Pisco Valley, surrounded by sand and these sun-bleached hills. Now this was built in the 15th century. It's an adobe complex that was a key administrative and military center, likely used by the Incas to control their coastal regions. And its name comes from the traces of red, yellow, and white paint that are still visible on its walls today, which is a really rare sight in Inca architecture. Unlike stone-built sites in the mountains, Tambo, Colorado's walls are made from sun-dried mud bricks, and yet they've survived remarkably well. Walking through its courtyards, passageways, trapezoidal doors, you can still feel the imposing presence of Inca power. The site remains quiet with only the wind. Occasionally you can hear a distant car just passing through the desert. But this is a place where history lingers in the heat. It is fascinating to visit. And number 9, I sort of struggled here. I accept number 9 is not a place, but we keep using the name Pisco. Despite the name, a Pisco sour didn't actually originate in Pisco, but the town certainly lays claim to the spirit that makes it famous. So the cocktail was first created in Lima in the early 1920s by Victor Vaughan Morris, who was an American bartender who ran the Morris Bar. He was inspired by the whiskey sour. He just swapped the whiskey for Pisco. And Pisco, by the way, is Peru's beloved grape brandy. Eventually, local bartenders refined this recipe. They added egg white and Angostura bitters. That said, Pisco itself is the birthplace of the spirit. And this region has been distilling Pisco since the 16th century, making it one of South America's oldest liquors. So while the cocktail was perfected elsewhere, Pisco remains the soul of the drink, producing that smooth, aromatic brandy that gives it character. So is Pisco sour from Pisco? Not quite. But without Pisco's iconic spirit, there would be no Pisco sour at all. You can find this in many places, including, if you want to take a bottle home, in the supermarkets. There is the map. I didn't put the Pisco on the map. But you can see here, things are pretty well spread out. Alrighty. Let's go back to 1532. Atahualpa came good on his word to provide Pizarro with a room full of gold, but no amount of gold could have saved his life. Pizarro was becoming increasingly paranoid about an assembling army of Indians, and he was right to be concerned. Atahualpa was indeed intending to double bluff the Spaniard, but he wasn't given the chance. On July 26th, 1533, the 13th emperor of the Incas was garroted and buried in the main square of Cajamarca, the very same square in which he was handed a Bible without any context, read a declaration in a language that he didn't speak, and subsequently kidnapped. But despite winning the region for the Spanish against all odds, Pizarro was not in the Spanish monarch's good books. In fact, when he sent his brother Hernando laden with gifts of gold to Spain, in 1539, the ruling monarch Philip II had him imprisoned and confined for the next 22 years. Francisco Pizarro saw his retribution when he was hacked to death in his Lima palace on June the 26th, 1541. Why did the Pizarros meet such sorry ends when they had delivered Spain such a gleaming jewel of South America? Well, their methods massively undermined Spain's concept of a just war based on religious education and advancement. But it also highlights something fundamental about Spain's colonization of South America, which goes some way to explaining why the Spanish found it so difficult to manage their empire in the New World. The Spanish monarchs and the Spanish conquistadors were two very different sets of people with two very different motivations. The monarchs, especially Queen Isabella at the time of the initial Columbus expeditions, were really, truly devout Catholics. They governed over an intrinsically Catholic country, and they honestly wanted to convert the world to Catholicism. And they knew they needed gold to afford to do this. So from the throne of Spain, these really could be considered as just wars. But the conquistadors weren't about that at all. Generally speaking, conquistadors weren't highly educated aristocratic elites looking to further advance in the New World. They were struggling Spaniards, often surviving in pretty destitute conditions in Spain, who were willing to risk their lives, because that was what was at stake here, their lives, to go on a thrilling adventure to the New World and acquire as much wealth and personal opportunity as they could. The Spanish monarchy had an extremely challenging time controlling its conquistadors at arm's length over in South America. About 20 years after Francisco Pizarro entered Peru and wrested it from the Incans, one of his descendants, Gonzalo Pizarro, declared independence from Spain and proclaimed himself king. The Spanish colonization of South America was not a neat, linear process. There were so many contradictory motivations and complex webs of competing interests. Ultimately, it's little surprise that Spain was unable to hold on to her empire in the New World. And actually, by the end, there's plenty to suggest that they'd lost the motivation much anyway. But Spain has left an unquestionable mark on this continent. And perhaps it's fitting that in his independence campaigns across Latin America, the great liberator Simón Bolívar was so often accompanied by his beautiful, tall, white horse.